What's up guys, Perry from Rockville here, and today I'm going to show you how to set up your PS40 micro amp. As you can see, it comes with the amp itself. It also comes with some mounting hardware if you wanted to mount the amp somewhere in your vehicle. And it also comes with Euroblock to RCA connectors to connect the high-level output wires from your head unit to the amplifier, but we're going to circle back to that later on. So if we take a look at the amplifier, you'll see we have all of these wires here. Some of them are used to power the amplifier, and some serve as inputs and outputs for the amplifier. So first, let's talk about the wires to connect the amplifier to power with these three wires here. So we have the red wire here, which will go to the 12-volt terminal of the battery inside of your vehicle. Then we have the blue remote wire, which will go to the remote output of your head unit. And this connection is responsible for turning the amplifier on and off along with the rest of your system. So in other words, as soon as your head unit powers on, the amplifier will power on along with it. And as soon as the head unit is off, the amplifier will turn off as well. Now, if your head unit doesn't have the remote output or any turn-on leads, you can run your remote wire of your amplifier to the accessory lead of your vehicle, which will power on the amplifier with your vehicle's ignition. And lastly, we have the black ground wire, which can run to the metal chassis of your vehicle. Up next, we have the front and rear RCA inputs that can connect to your head unit. Now, if you ever get confused on which one is which, every single wire input and output is labeled here on the amp itself, so you can always tell what you're connecting to. So to connect your head unit to these RCA inputs, you're going to take an RCA cable, plug one end into the rear left and right output of your head unit, then plug the other end into the rear left and right input of your amplifier. You're then going to do the exact same thing for the front input, so take another RCA cable, plug one end into the front left and right output of your head unit, then plug the other end into the front left and right input of your amplifier. Now, if your head unit has high-level output wires, you can also use these Euroblock to RCA adapters here. So for example, you can take the high-level output wires for your front left and front right output and connect them into the spade terminals here of your adapters, then plug the other ends into the front left and right inputs on your amplifier. Then you can do the exact same thing with the rear high-level output wires, connect them into the Euroblock terminals on your adapters, then plug the other ends into the rear left and right inputs on your amplifier. Next, we have all of the wires here to connect our speakers to our amplifier. So first, we have the white wires here to connect the front left speaker, and we have one positive and one negative wire, with the negative wire having the black strip here to let you know that it's the negative. So you can take another lead and run positive to positive and negative to negative, and then connect your other ends to the positive and negative terminals of your speakers. Next, we have the gray wires to connect the front right speaker, again with the plain wire acting as the positive and the one with the black stripe as the negative. Next, we have the green wires to connect to the rear left speaker, again with the plain wire acting as the positive and the one with the black stripe as the negative. And lastly, we have the purple wire to connect to the rear right speaker, again with the plain as the positive and the one with the black stripe as the negative. Again, you can connect separate leads to all of these wires and make sure they're running to the positive and negative terminals of your speakers, and you're all good to go. Another thing to keep in mind is that each of these channels are 2 ohm stable, which gives us plenty of options for speaker setups. It will also make wiring your speakers super simple because you can run every speaker in parallel. So you can have anywhere from 1 to 4 speakers set up to each channel, depending on the impedance of your speakers. So for example, you can have 4 8-ohm speakers ran in parallel to one channel for a final impedance of 2 ohms, which can go with one of our channels here. You can also have 2 4-ohm speakers set up on a channel, or 1 2-ohm speaker set up to a channel. So as long as the final impedance is 2 ohms, you're going to be pulling the full power of the amplifier at 85 watts, and anything above that is going to pull less power. So for example, if your final impedance is 4 ohms, you're going to be drawing 50 watts of power from the amp. So now we have some controls on the other end of the amplifier, which we can access by lifting the rubber padding here. And from here, you'll see we have a crossover control for our front and rear speakers, as well as a bass EQ for an extra adding of bass. And from here you'll see we have controls for both the front and rear speakers. So first we have the crossover, which will control the frequency range that's coming out of the speakers. So as far as our crossover options go, we have a low pass filter, we have a full range mode, and we also have a high pass filter. And then we have the frequency knob to control the frequency range for our low pass filter or high pass filter. Let's go over the low pass filter first. So if we set the front or rear speakers to the low pass filter mode, we're going to be hearing everything below the frequency range that we set with the frequency knob. So for example, if I set the frequency knob to 100 Hertz, we're only going to be hearing everything from 100 Hertz and below, and nothing above 100 Hertz. And then on the opposite side of that, we have the high pass filter, where we can have the speakers play the higher frequency range. So for example, if we set it to 100 Hertz in the high pass filter mode, we're going to be hearing everything from above 100 Hertz and nothing below. And lastly, we have the full range mode, where the speakers will play the full range of frequency. And lastly, we have the bass EQ if we want to add some extra bass to our front or rear speakers. We can set the bass EQ either to 0, 3 dB, or 6 dB. Now, aside from setting up our head unit to the amp, we can also connect a Bluetooth device like our smartphone or tablet to play music from the amplifier. Before we show you how to set that up, we're actually going to switch sets and connect some speakers to the amplifier so we can hear how everything sounds afterwards. Okay, so here we are now with the PS40 set up to the wakeboard tower speakers so we can really hear what the amp can do. So to connect a device like our smartphone or tablet to the amplifier, I'm going to go into the Bluetooth settings, search for the device that reads PS40, and click on it to pair. You're then going to hear a sound letting you know that your device is connected to the amp. So now we can play music from our device and have it come out of the speakers connected to the PS40. So let's go ahead and hear how it sounds. All right, here we go. That's awesome. Sounds really good. Nice. Okay. So hopefully this showed you guys how easy it is to set up your PS40, but of course if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to our customer support team through phone or email. As always, I'm Perry from Rockville, and we'll see you guys next time.